Well, we are continuing our Know Your Right segment with Injury Florida Law. Miss Catherine Stone joining us once again this morning. And here's a question that we haven't tackled in a little bit, and I think this is good for employees to ask themselves. Does your employer have a drug-free workplace program? What does that mean if they do? What does it mean if they don't? And again, Catherine joining us this morning to kind of dive into this. This is interesting.
Yeah, well, it's especially important to know whenever you have a work-related accident on the job, and then your employer is demanding a drug sample from you. If you refuse that drug sample, what can happen if you refuse to provide it? And it's important because if your employer has a certified drug-free workplace program at the time of your accident and you refuse to provide a drug sample, then they can deny your workers' comp benefits. They can preclude you medical care as well as indemnity, which is lost wage claim. However, sometimes we will get claims and the employer will try to enforce a drug-free workplace program defense, and then they don't actually have a certified program in place, or maybe they thought they did, but they weren't in compliance. So for instance, it has to be certified. There's certain forms they had to fill out. There's certain notices that they had to provide employees upon hiring that employee, and certain procedures and protocols. And they have to treat every employee the same. So they can't just pinpoint you as an employee or a certain other employee and say, okay, well, we didn't drug test this employee after an accident, but we're going to drug test this one. Also, leading up to the accident, have they been enforcing their drug-free workplace program? And it's pretty significant. I have several cases right now involving this defense, and that's what we're in the middle of discovery, is whether or not the employer was actually had a program in place that they can utilize in support of their defense. Oftentimes they don't. They haven't been compliant with keeping that up to date. The other issue that I would like to point out is the use of medical marijuana may not be covered by these drug-free workplace programs. So, oftentimes I get the question, well, I have a prescription for medical marijuana, and that may or may not fall as an exclusion under that employer's drug-free workplace program.
All right. So who determines that as far as the policies? Is it state? Is it federal? Is it up to the employer?
Well, the policy itself has to be pretty specific. The policy itself has to say what happens if you refuse after being required to take a drug test. If you make the refusal, the policy has to set out your rights to appeal that decision. So the policy itself is very, very important on the way it was written. There's not necessarily, a federal czar that's going to come in and say, employer, you're not adhering to this. It's more to protect the employers when they try to terminate someone or deny workers' compensation benefits.
And I'd imagine it has to be available for employees to know and read and.
Right. And that is one of the biggest things, is that the employees know about the policy. Oftentimes your initial personnel file,
Yeah.
when you get a new package with an employer, it's going to have in there
Okay.
a notice
On where you can find it. Well, we've been showing your website, your phone number. I know you're just so good about saying, hey, if people have questions, the more you know, the better. Call right away. Again, thank you so much for your time. I enjoy our discussions here.